All right, so let's begin. Today we're gonna talk about the when pressure the pressure volume loops in cardiac cycle. The cardiac cycle is basically systole plus diastole. One complete cycle includes systole plus diastole. It's everything is a game, like in the cardiac. So you have game in versus out. What does that mean? Is basically is what goes in to the heart gets out of the heart. So in normal, and we only talking about only talking about the normal stuff, not the pathology. So normally, what goes in, like so the two teams, team in versus team out. So in team in, so have players when you go, they're all same, they all wants to win for in, and they all on the other side they all want to win for out. So for in, venous return, mean arterial atrial pressure. That's like atria, the left atrium, and everything here we basically talking about the left side of the heart. That's like left atrium and left ventricle. So you have venous return, you have a main atrial pressure, and then end diastolic volume. End diastolic volume is basically the volume that you have at the end of the diastole. That's like a complete relaxation of the left ventricle. That's usually 140 ml. Preload is the same thing. It's the synonymous word for end diastolic volume. And then so these like everything is in team, that goes in. That's 140 ml. That's maximum. The maximum the normally left ventricle can hold, and then once it hit the 140, now what's gonna happen? The pressure is gonna start building up in the left ventricle, and then I'll show you in the next slide like how does it work. How the pressure is building and stuff, and then what happens, like once they hit the maximum pressure, like once you hit the maximum contraction of the left ventricle, then it's gonna blow out. And what's gonna blow out is the cardiac output and stroke volume. Well, they're not same thing. Well, they're basically the same thing, but they space one is straight up like, so heart beats, right? Like one heart beats like one contraction, but then also over the contraction is over the time. So the cardiac output is over, this total volume of total stroke volume over the particular amount of unit time, per minute or something. So let's talk about like all this, how does it work. So just remember these two pictures, and I think it tells you everything about the pressure loop, like pressure volume loop in like one cardiac cycle. um what you have is like, so first of all, look at this picture. So you on the y-axis you have a pressure, and on the x-axis you have a volume. And we already told you, so everything about left ventricle and left atrium. So this is left ventricle pressure and left ventricle volume. What you have is maximum 140 ml of the end diastolic volume. So the whole thing from here to here, that's like 140 ml. That's like end diastolic volume. That's at the end of the yeah, diastole. So a complete filling of the left ventricle. So alright, so four parts of this picture, like on this side. One is right here, two, three, and four. Or sometimes you can have one here, two here, three here, and four here. So what these four lines mean, like four block means, is basically any horizontal line you have, like one here and one here. So two to three and three to four. I mean two to three and four to one. That basically means that's time, the volume is moving, the volume is changing. Other than that, you see this, like a straight line on the y-axis parallel to the blood pressure. That's like, volume doesn't change, volume remains the same in the ventricles, left ventricle. So you have one, two, three, and four. The horizontal line also tells you the what, because the fluid is, the volume is moving, right? So that's why your valves is open, like either aortic valve or mitral valve. So on here, that's the aortic valve is open here, and the mitral valve is open here. Right. So but these two play lines, like one to two and three to four, because there's no volume is moving, right? So during that time, none of the valves are open. So all the valves are closed between, between isovolumetric period, like here and here. So this is contract. Like, so remember, when something is contracting, the pressure is building, and when something is relaxed, relaxation is basically to reduce the pressure. So what happens is like when you go up from 1 to 2, that's a contraction, and it's called, because the volume is the same, it's called isovolumetric contraction. And then what happens like when you go up, the pressure is building, building, building in the left ventricle, and then it's gonna hit like the aortic pressure, the aortic wall pressure. And then what happens like the left ventricular pressure, goes higher than aortic wall pressure, and that's gonna happen right here. And that's the time aortic valve open. Once aortic valve open, the volume that you have in the left ventricle, like the 140 ml, that's like end-diastolic volume. And also another thing, when pressure goes up, because so you have 140 ml in the left ventricle, the pressures keep building up and up and up, and then uh, um, it hits the aortic valve pressure, and then what happens once it can't open the aortic valve, it's gonna the volume is gonna blow out of the left ventricle into the aorta. So that goes from left ventricle to aorta, and then it goes up to 140 ml, from 140 ml all the way to 70 ml. That's like right here. So up to 70 ml, that's like a 50% of the end-diastolic volume is gonna blow out of the left ventricle and go into the aorta. And then what happens is once he hit the 70 ml of the left ventricle, that's the time pressure matches between. It doesn't match. Basically, the aortic pressure is. I mean, no, the left ventricular pressure goes lower than aortic pressure, and that's the time when left ventricular pressure goes lower than aortic pressure. That's the time aortic valve. It's time for aortic valve to close, so that no more left ventricular volume can blow out, um, it doesn't go out. So what remains in the left ventricle is 70 ml. Like you see this, like right here, like this part. So that's what the end systolic, because you see this is systole, right? This is systole. So because systolic is basically the contraction. So this is that represent the systole. At the end of the systole, you have an end systole, like 70 ml left. Only this part, And what happens once okay, so now you have a 70 ml left in the left ventricle, and your aortic valve closed. Now again, what's gonna happen? You don't want to stay at 70. You want to go back to 140, right? Like you want to go back to 140. That's like end diastolic volume. That's the normal volume you should have in the left ventricle. So that time pressure is reducing. So here, when it's contracting, right, the pressure is going up. But now, because it's so much contracted, now the pressure is gonna release. In order to release pressure, what you're gonna do? You're gonna relax the ventricle. So that's what happening here between 3 and 4. The ventricle is gonna relax, 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 and then it's gonna go back to the where it started, or even lower than where it started. It started here, but it's gonna go even. It's gonna become basically so much loose and relaxed. And then what it does, why you need to have a ventricle relaxed, because you wanna fill the volume. You wanna fill the left ventricle with the blood that you lost during the stroke volume, like the ejection. So basically, this is ejection. I forgot to say that this is ejection and this is refilling. So what you lost during the ejection, that's like 70 ml. You want to fill it back. Refill those 70 ml, and that's gonna happen between 4 and 1. Now it's not gonna happen like there's no valve open or anything. So you have to open the valve to fill this left ventricle. But during that time, now you have aortic valve closed here. None of the valves are open here, so all the valves are closed here, just like it was closed here. Now you have to open one of the valves. Now you're not gonna open aortic valve because the pressure is already lower. The left ventricular pressure is already lower than aortic pressure. So what you're gonna open is At this time, your atrial pressure, the left atrial pressure, is more than left ventricle pressure. So that time, left atrium gonna push the blood that that it gets from the pulmonary vein, and that is the oxygenated blood, and it's gonna open the mitral valve, and that's where the mitral valve open and gonna send all the blood to the left ventricle, and then fuel it's gonna refuel the left ventricle that goes up to 40 ml. I mean, I'm sorry, 70 ml. So that's like a refilling of 70 ml with that what you lost ejection. So ejection is also called stroke volume, because stroke volume is like one contraction, one beat is 70 ml. We're not talking about time, because if we talk about the time, then it's a cardiac output. But here, just basically this area represents the stroke volume. So you refill it, and then once you get to 140 ml in the left ventricle, what's going to happen is the mitral valve, the pressure in the left ventricle is going to go higher than left atrium. So that's the time, left atrium, I mean, the mitral valve is going to close, because you don't want to fill too much of the left ventricle. You close it, and then again, the cycle is going to repeat. The whole cycle is going to repeat. So now, sometimes it doesn't remain, everything doesn't remain the same that you want to be. So well, sometimes, like so as I told you, that the something goes up, something goes down, that changes the whole cardiac cycle. So first, let's talk about the preload. So preload, as I say, the preload, anything like preloading, increasing anything that goes in, like venous return, or mean arterial pressure, or like end-diastolic volume, or preload. That's kind of you increasing the volume in the left ventricle. So that's gonna the green one right here. Nothing changes here, right? Like everything is the same. The only thing is changing is the refilling it. You're refilling it more because the volume is increasing, and then that's it. That's basically preload or stroke volume, or cardiac. No, um, preload or end diastolic volume right here, or venous return, or mean arterial pressure. That's gonna tell you this graph. So what happens is, like, all right, so why does the stroke volume increase here? Because you see the area is like right here. That's like the stroke volume. So the more you feel, the more you're gonna eject, because you don't want to keep anything like more in the left ventricle normally. So increasing preload causes increase in stroke volume. That's the graphs just tell you. Now the second one is of afterload. So afterload is basically aortic pressure. If increasing aortic pressure, what you have to do, your work for contracting is gonna go up. So you're gonna contract more and more and more. So we're talking about this blue one, like right here. So because normally, your aortic pressure, your left ventricular pressure is gonna go beyond the aortic pressure right here, and then the aortic valve is gonna open. But what happens sometimes, aortic pressure goes up. So now you have to reach here to open the aortic valve. So you're gonna lose this much of contraction in reaching high aortic pressure to open the aortic valve, and that's why your stroke volume is gonna decrease, like and then you're gonna eject only this much, a little bit, and then because you lost so much contraction, now you can't. That's maximum contraction you can get to reach the aortic pressure. Now you're gonna have to just close the valve, and then relax again, and then complete the cycle. So basically, when you have but that time what's happening is, like, and systolic volume is gonna go up. You see this thing? So basically, increasing aortic pressure, increasing contraction, and then decreasing stroke volume, and increasing and systolic volume, right here. Now what you're gonna have, the orange one, contractility. So contractility is basically, so you're beating faster. Like, you're increasing contractility is basically your heart is beating faster, and that's why when you beat faster, what happens is the stroke volume goes up. You see this, or red one? All right. So what happens? So here you're not refilling it. You're not refilling it. You don't begin with refilling more, like increasing preload, like increasing volume. You begin with like contraction, like so basically everything was normal here, here, here. But what happens, like you contracting more, so you're gonna throw out, like you're gonna eject more and more stroke volume. You're gonna inject more and more volume. So that's why. But this thing is normal here for the contraction. This thing is normal. The only thing is changing is the stroke volume, and that's time, like and systolic volume uh decrease, because you cannot, here you don't go beyond 140 ml, but here you go, the stroke volume goes higher than 70 ml. That's why you lose your end systolic volume. In preload, you only increasing the the beginning part of the filling part in the beginning. So that's why you don't change the end systolic volume there. It doesn't. It remains the same for the preload, and that's it. Oh yeah. Oh, the sound. So like so that four sound we have, like S1, S2, S3, and as for the heart sound we listen to like on the heart using stethoscope. So the normal sounds are only two, S1 and S2. The S3 and S4, they're abnormal. So basically, while closest, and that's what gives you the sound. So S1 you get when you have mitral valve closes. So when mitral valve closes first, and that's when you hear the lub. Lub is like mitral valve closes, and then dub is basically S2. That's where aortic valve closes right here. So you hear the lub S1, dub S2, lub dub lub dub S. I mean mitral, aortic, mitral, aortic, mitral, aortic. That's it. And then S3 you hear when you're refilling, when you're refilling your left atrium to left ventricle. You're refilling. That's where you hear the sound, the S3. That's abnormal. I think children you can hear, but then over the year you just, I guess, you disappear. S4 is like, I don't even know, but just know this.